Can a spore syringe be used the same way as a liquid culture syringe? Well, the answer is yes and no. You can use it the same way as a liquid culture syringe, but the thing is, if you use a spore syringe to directly inject a substrate and allow the spores to germinate and allow that colony of diverse fungal genetics to develop, what you're going to have is segmentation. You're going to have areas of that substrate that are fighting each other for control of the complete substrate, and none of them are actually going to win. Liquid culture mycelium that you get in liquid culture syringes and you can keep in liquid culture jars for a while. Liquid culture syringes work differently because it's all the same fungus on the inside. I don't mean the species, I mean that it's genetically consistent, it's genetically homogeneous across the entire organism. So when you have, say, a liquid culture jar of lion's mane, you've got mycelium swirls all throughout there that are one colony, that are one genetically recognizable organism, as opposed to having multiple types of genetics in there, each one fighting for control of the space. When you start with the spore syringe, you end up with the multiple types of genetics and multiple colonies and segmentation in whatever you add that to. And when you start with a liquid culture, you don't, because it's all genetically homogeneous, one single organism. So that's why it's recommended to start spore cultures, whether it be from a spore syringe or from actual dry spore on agar, or something like agar, like if you're working with cardboard tech. Anyhow, you can grow out your spores from there, and you can select the part of the developing colony that you like that displays good rhizomorphic growth, and go ahead and isolate that and start a new culture with that. And by doing that once or twice or maybe 3 times, if you want to get a really homogeneous looking culture, in the case of some like shiitake, shiitake tends to need a few different isolations, a few different generations before it will completely homogenize across the culture. But once you have that isolated bit off of the multispore genetic culture, once you've grown it out for a generation or 2 or 3, then you can use it to start a liquid culture, or to basically do the same things you would with a liquid culture. So at that point, it is one genetically homogeneous organism that's going to keep producing more mycelium that it will genetically recognize. So if you take two samples and place them on the opposite sides of agar, once they're a generation or 2 removed from the spore, once they've homogenized, they will be able to meet and fuse. The 2 colonies will meet and fuse rather than meeting and forming a border wall between them. So when you end up with segmentation in your colonies, rather your substrates, it's because there are various types of genetics that are going on, each one trying to fight for control of the substrate. Whereas if you start with a liquid culture mycelium, you're using one single organism throughout, which leads to a better performance. But also, keeping liquid cultures over a long period of time can cause them to go senescent, meaning that they become old and less vigorous and less capable of fruiting. And when that happens, they'll need to go back to a fruit body, either to have a fresh sample from the fruit body or from the spore itself. Depending on whether you want to preserve the specific culture traits, you'd want to start with a fruit body section if you did, or if you want to start with a new combination of genetics for the species, and you'd want to start with a spore sample if you did. So that is the difference in the use between the spore syringe and the liquid culture syringe.